Today is the 64th session of Golden Charcha. EIRC initiative Golden Charcha and Enriching webinar series by EIRC FICI on every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Uh, Today is a special address given by the CA Mayank Kumarji, and today's speaker is CA Sukanya Ghosh. Today's topic is green taxonomy and sustainable finance. I request Mayank Kumarji to special address for today's session.
Thank you so much, Chimpu Agarwal ji. Good evening, esteemed colleagues. I am honored to speak at this Golden Charcha session organized by EIRC of ICAI. Today's topic, as we all know that, green taxonomy and sustainable finance. This session basically aims to demonstrate what green actually means and how can we align the same with sustainability. So I will just brief a little about this, and then our today's speaker, C.A. Sukunya Ghoshji, will incite us with better clarity. What truly green taxonomy means? Green taxonomy is a concept which is becoming increasingly important in sustainability finance as well as policy making. This is the classification system which defines what economic activities can truly be considered as environmentally sustainable. As you know that in today's world, where every business claims to be green to take the advantage from governments and there are many subsidiaries which government are giving, government or the regulators or policymakers provide to the businesses which are green in nature. So all the businesses try to claim that they are green. There are the taxonomies act which act like referees to separate between genuine sustainability as well as the greenwashing. Greenwashing means those who show themselves as green, but not they are not in genuine. So we have some scientific criteria which actually defines what truly green is. Those are like renewable energy, then waste management, then conservation, then climate resilient infrastructure. Um, in detail, Sukanya ji will be highlighting over all this. So now, one of the most important role of green taxonomy is to create sustainable finance by helping banks, investors, or the institutions which provide loans or invest in genuine funds towards the projects which are actually supporting for the climate change, mitigation, biodiversity protection, and many more things. So this also ensures that capital flow is in the proper direction as well as their objective is long term, not just the short term. We have some global institutions like EU Green Taxonomy as well as we have some Asian taxonomy, those who have set benchmarks to align with the government sustainability. But whereas India is currently working or trying to develop some approaches through which they can set some benchmark which will help to accept or align the growth with the sustainability of the environment. So, and something which relates to how we can take the green taxonomies in daily life, how we can use or people like us use the green taxonomy in daily life is that like for the companies they use it for ESG reporting, for the regulators they use for policy designing, government use them for tracking the progresses of their nation. So with all this, I would like to conclude my part and would hand over to the Punya ji for the further proceeding.
Just a minute, मैं बीच में 2 मिनट और लूंगा.
Yeah,
Today's speaker C. Sukanya Ghosh, practicing chartered accountant with over 22 years of professional experience, specializing in accounting, taxation, audit, compliance, and advisory service. Extensive exposure to working with corporate SMEs and individual clients across diverse sectors, with a strong focus on regularity, compliance, financial reporting, and strategic financial planning. So I request Shri Shukanya Ghoshi to start our today's session. And over to Shukanya ji.
Thank you so much. Good evening, everyone present here. It's my privilege to speak on a subject that sits at the intersection of economics, finance, policy, and planetary survival. First, we'll deal with sustainability. Sustainability today is no longer a peripheral concern for environmentalists. It has become a central question for finance ministers, central bankers, regulators, CEOs, and investors. Over the last few decades, we have witnessed a profound shift in climate. Climate change has moved from being viewed as a long-term environmental challenge to being recognized as an immediate economic and financial risk. We have extreme weather events that are disrupting global supply chains. Heat stress is affecting labor productivity. Water scarcity is threatening food security. So, it's affecting energy, transport, real estate, and manufacturing. In this backdrop, capital markets and financial institutions, they are being asked an unprecedented question. What is the question? How do we deploy capital in a way that supports growth today while safeguarding economic and ecological stability tomorrow? The basic answer lies in the combined framework of sustainability, green taxonomy, and sustainable finance. It's not a slogan, but an operational systems. So here we will first define what is sustainability, what is the meaning of sustainability, and what are the misconceptions that we are bearing in mind regarding sustainability. Sustainability emerged from the recognition that our traditional economic models treated nature and society as infinite and external, while in reality both are finite and deeply interconnected with economic output. Today, sustainability is best understood not as an ethical overlay, but as risk-return framework. Physical climate risk, they are affecting assets and operation. Transition risk, affecting valuations and competitiveness. Social risk, affect license to operate. At the same time, sustainability opens opportunities in innovation, new markets, and capital access. So the system views there are three triple bottom line. Environmental sustainability. This concern the integrity of natural systems, climate stability, water cycles, biodiversity. Environmental degradation ultimately translates into economic costs. Next comes social sustainability. Social systems, that is labor, communities, institutions, are equally critical. Projects that ignore social factors face resistance, delay, and instability. Third point, that is economic sustainability. Economic sustainability that ensures solution scale. Loss-making green solutions are not sustainable solutions. Now we will discuss about the misconceptions regarding this sustainability that must be dispelled. We think that sustainability slows growth. No, it's not. Sustainability is only about emissions and sustainability is voluntary. In reality, sustainability is about resilience, competitiveness, and longevity. Why markets need green taxonomy? We are discussing about taxonomy, green taxonomy. So what is the requirement of green taxonomy in the market, in the financial markets? Financial markets mainly thrive on clarity, consistency, and comparability. Prices, risk premiums, and capital allocation decisions depend on shared definitions and reliable information. So sustainability without definitions creates ambiguity. And this ambiguity in financial markets inevitably translates into risk, mispricing, and erosion of trust. In the early phase of sustainable finance, well-mentioned principles and voluntary commitments dominated the landscape. While this helped raise awareness, They were insufficient for scale. Markets cannot operate efficiently on intent alone. This is the fundamental role of green taxonomy. They require rules, classifications, and verifiable criteria. The criteria must be verified, supported by proper data and documents. Now we are talking about the unstructured sustainability. What is the problem of unstructured sustainability? Without a green taxonomy, the sustainability remains fragmented and subjective. Different issuers may describe similar activities using different levels. While identical levels, they may hide fundamentally different environmental outcomes. In such an environment, investors cannot compare green assets, a renewable energy bond, an energy efficiency loan, a low carbon transition project may all be labeled as green, but without common definitions, investors cannot assess which delivers greater environmental impact or lower transition risk. From the point of view of banks cannot price climate and transition risk accurately. There are climate and transition risk. So banks have to calculate that risk accurately. And lending decisions rely on risk differentiation. If banks cannot distinguish genuinely green assets, transition assets, and high-risk assets, climate risk becomes embedded but invisible in balance sheet. And next comes regulator. Regulators cannot supervise effectively. Supervisory authorities require consistent classifications to monitor systematic exposure, prevent greenwashing, and assess concentration risk. So without taxonomy, supervision becomes reactive rather than preventive. Next comes principles to rules. Sustainability principles, important question. Why should we act? Green taxonomy bridges these gaps. Principles express intent and direction. Taxonomy translates intent into eligibility criteria. This shift from values to rules is what enables scalable green bond and loan markets, consistent disclosures and reporting, integration of sustainability into credit appraisal and investment mandates. So without taxonomy, sustainable finance remains discretionary. With taxonomy, it becomes mainstream, repeatable, and investable. Enabling market integrity and investor protection. Another critical role of green taxonomy is protecting market integrity. As sustainable finance grows, so does the risk of greenwashing, mis-selling of financial products, loss of investor confidence. So taxonomy acts as a reference benchmark against which claims can be tested. It supports clear process leveling, consistent disclosures. Now we will deal with green taxonomy, its principles, tests, and mechanisms. Basically, what is green taxonomy? A green taxonomy is a science-based, rule-driven classification system that identifies which economic activities can be considered environmentally sustainable. And what are the purposes of this green taxonomy? It provides clarity and certainty to markets. It creates comparability across issuers, sectors, and geographies. It enables credit disclosures and supervision, and it prevents greenwashing and misallocation of capital. There are few objectives. Number one is environmental objectives. Most global taxonomies, they converge around 6 environmental objectives. These objectives, they are the entry gates for any activity seeking green level. Number one is climate change mitigation. Activities that avoid, reduce, or remove greenhouse gas emissions. Examples are renewable power generations, energy efficiency improvement, green hydrogen, and electrification of transport, e-vehicle, for example. So, what is the key test? Key test is that does this activity materially reduce emissions compared to the baseline. Second point is climate change adaptation. Activities that reduce vulnerability to climate impacts. For example, climate resilient agriculture, flood resilient infrastructure, heat resilient urban designing. In urban area, designing should be like that it generates minimum heat. So that is heat resilient urban designing. And the key test is that does this activity reduce physical climate risk? Point 3 is sustainable use of water and marine resources. For example, water efficient irrigation, wastewater treatment and reuse, industrial water recycle. And key test is does the activity improve water efficiency or quality without ecosystem harm? Fourth point is transition to a circular economy. Circular economy examples include recycling and reuse, waste to resource model. How much waste they are converted into resource. So that is waste to resource models. Resource efficiency technologies. And key test, does the activity reduce material intensity and waste generation? Fifth point is pollution prevention and control. For example, air pollution control system, hazardous waste management, and clean industrial processes. Key test is that does the activity materially reduce pollutants across air, water, and soil? Point 6 is protection of biodiversity and ecosystem. Examples are sustainable forestry, afforestation and restoration, biodiversity sensitivity infrastructure. So now we come to point 3. Point 3 is do no significant harm, that is managing environmental trade-off. DNSH. DNSH is the integrity firewall of green taxonomy. For example, an hydropower project, although they are reducing emissions, but they are destroying biodiversity. So it fails the basic integrity of DNSH, that is do no significant harm policy. Another example is biofuel production. Biofuel production, they are causing water stress or deforestation. Again, it fails the basic policy, basic principle of DNSH, that is do no significant harm policy. Fourth point is the minimum social safeguard. Environmental sustainability, they cannot be achieved at the expense of people. Minimum social safeguards require compliance with labor laws, occupational health and safety norms, community consultation and consent, human rights protection. Next comes technical screening criteria. This is where taxonomy moves from concept to compliance mechanism. Technical screening criteria specify emission intensity threshold. What is the threshold of emission intensity? Energy efficiency benchmark, minimum benchmark for energy efficiency, pollution limits, technology eligibility. For example, power generation qualifies as green only if emissions fall below a defined CO2 threshold per unit of electricity. These criteria allow auditors to verify claims, regulators to supervise compliance, and investors to rely on disclosures. Next comes global green taxonomy models, comparative analysis. This is from fragmentation to convergence in sustainable finance. Why global taxonomy model matters? Green taxonomy is not just a domestic policy tool. It is increasingly, it's becoming a global financial language. So capital today is mobile, cross-border, and highly sensitive to credibility. A green bond issued in one jurisdiction is often bought by investors sitting thousands of kilometers away. So it is now a global financial language. So if sustainability definitions differ sharply across the countries, the result is highly confusing. Investors get confused. That's why higher due diligence costs, markets getting fragmented, and reduced capital flows to emerging economies. So global taxonomy models therefore serve three purposes. Number one, credibility, that is ensuring environmental integrity. Number two, comparability, enabling cross-border investment decisions. And number three is capital mobilization, reducing friction in sustainable finance. We will now discuss about how major regions have approached this challenge and what India can learn from that. First, we will talk about European Union Green Taxonomy. The EU Green Taxonomy is the most comprehensive and legally embedded taxonomy framework globally. It has some basic characteristics. The core characteristics are legally binding under EU law, integrated with corporate disclosures, applies to companies, financial institutions, asset managers, and governments, and strong alignment with climate science. Design philosophy, it is built on environmental integrity first. The key features include very strict technical screening criteria, robust DNSH requirements, mandatory minimum social safeguards, and clear linkage to disclosure and reporting obligation. And what are the strengths of that? Strengths are high credibility with global institutional investors, strong deterrence against greenwashing, clear benchmarks for climate alignment, and integrate sustainability into financial supervision. And what is the key lesson for India from this model? The EU model demonstrates what is possible when ambition is high, but also warns that excessive rigidity can exclude developing economies and MSMEs. Next, we will talk about China's green taxonomy. China's green taxonomy has evolved rapidly, reflecting the country's focus on scaling capital deployment rather than regulatory perfection. The core characteristics are initially focused on green bond eligibility, strong role of state policy and public finance, gradual tightening over time, and increasing convergence with global norms. China famously revised its taxonomy to remove clean coal from green eligibility, signaling a shift towards global alignment. Strengths are fast scaling of green finance markets, strong integration with industrial policy, clear linkage between taxonomy and investment flows. There are few risk factors, potential dilution of green integrity if thresholds are weak, and risk of international skepticism without transparency. And key lesson for India, China shows that taxonomy can be a capital deployment tool for India, not just a disclosure mechanism, but credibility must improve over time. Now we will discuss about Asian taxonomy. The Asian taxonomy is particularly relevant for India because it explicitly recognizes developmental diversity. The core characteristics are tiered classification system. Categories such as green, transition, and red allows countries to progress at different speeds. Design philosophy, it adopts a transition-friendly approach, acknowledging that not all economies can decarbonize at same pace. Excluding transition sectors may stall development. Capital should support improvement, not just perfection. Strengths are high inclusivity, lower compliance barriers, strong alignment with emerging market realities. And there are the key lesson for India, Asian demonstrates how taxonomy can be graduated, flexible, and inclusive, an approach highly relevant for India's MSME-heavy economy. Lastly, we will talk about Japan's transition finance framework. It's a complementary model. The basic and Japan provides a clear example of how green and transition frameworks can coexist, that is, go hand in hand together. Core characteristics are explicit transition finance guidelines, sector-specific decarbonization pathways, strong role of corporate transition plans. Japan recognizes that heavy industries like steel, cement, and chemicals cannot become green overnight, but still decarbonize. And what are the key insight? Transition transition finance that requires science-based targets, time-bound milestones, capital expenditure alignment, and continuous performance tracking. Lesson for India: India's industrial base mirrors Japan's in several respects. A dual taxonomy framework is not optional, it is essential. So what this means for India? India actually is standing at a strategic crossroads. India must avoid blindly importing EU-style rigidity, avoid excessively loose definitions that harm credibility, design a taxonomy that is science-aligned, that is transition-aware, that is MSME inclusive, and globally interoperable. India's advantage lies in learning from others without repeating their mistakes. Fifth point is India's sustainability and development imperative. India at a unique development crossroads. India's sustainability challenge is fundamentally different from that of developed economies. India is basically a fast-growing major economy, home to nearly 1/6 of world's population, still addressing basic development needs, energy access, housing, sanitation, mobility, and jobs. Unlike advanced economies, India is building much of its infrastructure for the first time, not merely retracting legacy systems. This creates both risk and opportunity. The central question is how can India pursue rapid economic growth without locking itself into unsustainable environmental pathways? Green taxonomy and sustainable finance are not environmental luxuries for India, they are developmental necessities. So, India's climate commitment and economic reality, India's climate strategy must be understood in context. India has committed to achieving net zero emissions by 2070, reducing emissions intensity of GDP, expanding non-fossil energy capacity, and enhancing carbon sinks. At the same time, India must ensure energy security, support industrial competitiveness, generate employment at scale, and maintain for consumers. This dual mandate requires sequencing, transition planning, and policy coherence, not abrupt exclusion. Scale of India's financing challenge. India's sustainability transition is basically capital intensive. Key financing needs include renewable energy and grid modernization, clean mobility and urban transportation, green building and infrastructure, water sanitation and waste management, climate resilient agriculture. Hard to abate sectors. In case of hard to abate sectors like steel, cement and manufacturing, India's industrial base is essential for infrastructure development, housing, manufacturing competitiveness. These sectors are emission intensive but non-negotiable. So India needs transition-aligned capital, sector-specific decarbonization pathways, technology-neutral but outcome-oriented frameworks. A well-designed taxonomy ensures these sectors are intensivized to improve, not starved of capital. And lastly, MSME, the inclusion challenge. India's economy is powered by MSME. However, MSME face limited data and reporting capacity, higher cost of compliance, and restricted access to affordable finance. A rigid taxonomy risks excluding MSME from green finance altogether. India's taxonomy must therefore be proportionate and phased, provide simplified eligibility criteria, enable banks to support MSME transition. Inclusion is not optional, it is central to India's sustainability success. Now we will deal with agriculture, water, and rural sustainability. Unlike many developed economies, India's sustainability challenge is deeply rural. Climate impacts threaten agricultural productivity, farmer livelihood, water scarcity. Sustainable finance must support climate resilient crops, efficient irrigation, soil health, and biodiversity. So taxonomy can guide capital into nature-based and adaptation-focused solutions, not just energy projects. Urbanization and infrastructure. India's urban population is expanding rapidly. So sustainability challenge includes housing and transport demand, waste and water management, heat stress, and air pollution. So what is the role of green taxonomy here? Green taxonomy can standardize green building definitions, support mass transit and clean mobility, and enable municipal green bonds. Urban sustainability is where taxonomy meets lived experiences. So global capital and India's credibility. India requires large volumes of foreign capital to finance its transaction. Global investors demand clear definition, comparable standards, regulatory certainty. A credible Indian economy reduces perception risk, lowers cost of capital, enhances global trust. It enables India to participate in global sustainable finance as a rule maker and not just a rule taker. And concluding insight for this, India's sustainability challenge is not about choosing between growth and the environment. It is about choosing the right growth pathway. So green taxonomy, if designed with development sensitivity, transition resilience, social inclusion, and global credibility, can become one of the India's most powerful economic instruments. For India, sustainability is not the end of growth. It is the condition for sustained growth. Now comes India's regulatory architecture. To take taxonomy into capital flows, regulators play a decisive role. In India, sustainable finance is shaped by three-pillar regulatory structure: SEBI, RBI, and GIFT IFSC. SEBI, they deal with capital markets. SEBI anchors sustainable finance through transparency and capital discipline, mandatory business responsibility and sustainability reporting, quantitative ESG metrics for listed entities, green bond guidelines aligned with global principles, and emphasis on preventing misleading ESG and green claims. So, green taxonomy strengthens SEBI's framework by objectively defining what qualifies as green, thereby reducing greenwashing and enhancing investor trust. Next is RBI, banking system and financial stability. RBI approaches sustainability through the lens of risk management and financial stability, recognition of climate risk as credit and systematic risk, encouragement to bankers and NBFCs to integrate ESG risk, focus on transition risk in lending portfolios. From RBI's perspective, mislocation of capital due to weak sustainability definitions is not just an environmental issue, it is a financial stability concern. So taxonomy helps banks differentiate green, transition, and brown assets, price risk appropriately, support an orderly sectoral transitions. Third regulatory sector is GIFT IFSC, that is Gujarat International Finance Tech City International Financial Service Center. It positions India within the global sustainable finance ecosystem. A robust Indian taxonomy improves global acceptance of Indian green assets, reduces due diligence friction, positions India as a credible, sustainable finance hub. So together, SEBI, RBI, and GIFT IFSC form a convergent regulatory ecosystem using taxonomy as a common technical language. Now we are talking about green versus transition taxonomy, that is managing the real economy, both going together. So central dilemma of sustainable finance, one of the most critical and often misunderstood question in sustainable finance is, should capital only flow to what is already green, or should it also finance what needs to become green? If sustainable finance only rewards today's green activities, it risks starving the real economy of capital, creating stranded assets, and triggering economic and social disruption. This dilemma gave rise to distinction between green taxonomy and transition taxonomy. So what green taxonomy does? Green taxonomy defines economic activities that are already environmentally sustainable, aligned with long-term climate goals, consistent with science-based thresholds. Its primary purpose is credibility. Green taxonomy answers the question, what qualifies as green? Beyond doubt, why green taxonomy is non-negotiable. The term green loses meaning. Investor confidence erodes and sustainable finance becomes market driven. And what is the limitations of green taxonomy alone? Only this green taxonomy has inherent limitations. Most existing industries do not qualify. Capital access becomes binary. Real economic transformation slows. So this is particularly problematic for emerging economies. And what about transition taxonomy? Transition taxonomy classifies activities that are not green today, are on a credible path to become green, deliver measurable emissions reductions. It is about direction, not destination. So why transition taxonomy is essential for India? India's economy includes coal-based power, energy-intensive manufacturing, infrastructure under rapid expansion. An exclusion-only approach would increase financing costs, disrupt employment, and undermine energy security. Transition is not a free pass. Transition taxonomy is often misinterpreted as leniency. In reality, it is more demanding because it requires baseline measurement, interim targets, transparent disclosure, consequences of non-performance. So we will talk about few sectors, green versus transition. First, we will talk about power sector. Power sector, solar and wind, so it is green. Supercritical coal with emissions reduction, it is in transition form. And inefficient coal, neither. If we look into steel industry, green hydrogen-based steel, that is green taxonomy, and efficient upgrades and fuel switching, that is transition. In case of transport, electric vehicles, that is in green taxonomy, and CNG hybrid transition fleets, that's in transition. So, strategic implications for India: green taxonomy attracts global capital, transition taxonomy ensures domestic stability. Both together, that is green taxonomy and transition taxonomy, they lower the cost of capital, enable orderly transition, and support exclusive growth. Lastly, we will talk about sustainable finance instruments. Why instruments matter more than intent? Sustainability objectives, they remain aspirational unless they are translated into financial instruments that can be priced, traded, monitored, and scaled. Policy sets direction, taxonomy defines eligibility. There are few financial sustainability instruments. Number one is green bonds. What makes a green bond green? A green bond is distinguished not by who issues it, but by how the proceeds are used. Core features are ring-fenced use of proceeds, eligible for green activities, reporting and disclosure obligations, external review or certification. The green bond market institutionalized sustainability into fixed income discipline. Green bonds in Indian context, they are seen in renewable energy, transmission and grid infrastructure, clean transportation, water and waste management. SEBI's green bond framework ensures investor protection, transparency, and alignment with international standards. Next comes sustainability-linked bonds and loans. Unlike green bonds, sustainability-linked instruments, they do not restrict the use of proceeds. They are linked with financial terms to sustainability performance. Interest rates, coupons, or margins are adjusted based on emission reduction target and energy efficiency improvements, ESG score improvements. Why market needs sustainability-linked bonds? They are designed to cover transition pathways, engage entire balance sheets, incentivize continuous improvement. There are few risk and safeguards also. Most of the economy is not green yet, but it must move on like this. So transition finance, financing the in-between. Why transition finance is essential? Sectors such as steel, cement, power, chemicals, aviation, they cannot turn green overnight. Excluding them from finance creates economic disruption, employment loss, and energy insecurity. So transition finance recognizes pathways, not perfections. Transition instruments are transition finance includes transition bonds, transition loans, and hybrid sustainability structures. So key characteristics are credible decarbonization plans, time-bound milestones, transparent disclosure of progress. So what is the role of taxonomy in transition finance? Without taxonomy, transition claims are subjective, risk of greenwashing increases, and with taxonomy, transition thresholds are defined, progress is measurable, and credibility improves. Now there are another bond, social bonds and sustainability bonds. Social bonds finance projects with affordable housing, healthcare, education, financial inclusion, MSME credit. They address the social pillar of sustainability. And sustainability bonds combine green objectives, social objectives. They are particularly relevant for urban infrastructure, public sector undertaking, and development finance institutions. India's development agenda makes sustainable bonds highly relevant. So what is the role of financial institutions? Banks and NBFCs are no longer passive intermediaries. They are risk assessor, transition partners, capital allocators. Green taxonomy enables them to segment portfolios, design customized products, and meet regulatory expansions. Disclosure, verification, and market integrity. No instrument is incredible without robust disclosure. Disclosure is a must. Third-party verification is obvious, and continuous ongoing reporting. Markets reward transparency, consistency, and integrity. They punish greenwashing. And what is the position of India in this respect? India stands at a unique moment. Large capital is required, rapid growth is necessary, and regulatory momentum. So sustainable finance instruments, what they can do, they can lower cost of capital, attract global investors, align growth with resilience, but only if instruments are taxonomy aligned, transition is credible, and regulation is coordinated. Lastly, we will deal with risk, challenges, and safeguards. As green taxonomy and sustainable finance frameworks scale up, it is important to acknowledge that they are not risk-free or self-executing. Poor design or weak implementation can dilute credibility and undermine confidence. Let me therefore spend some time on key risks and safeguards required. Number one, greenwashing and misclassification risk. Perhaps the most visible risk is greenwashing. What is greenwashing? Where activities are although labeled as green, but without delivering meaningful environmental outcome. This can occur due to various reasons: vague or overly broad taxonomy verification, self-reported data without verification, marketing-driven ESG claims. Greenwashing erodes investors' trust, distorts capital allocation, and can expose financial institutions to reputational and regulatory risk. What are the safeguards that we need to take? Clear technical screening criteria, mandatory disclosures aligned with taxonomy, independent third-party verification, and strong enforcement by regulators. Green taxonomy must therefore function as a gatekeeper, not as a branding exercise. Data availability, quality, and reliability. Sustainable finance is data intensive. However, many Indian companies, especially MSME, face challenges in generating high-quality climate and ESG data. Common issues include lack of standardized measurement methodologies, limited historical data, high cost of data collection. Poor data quality weakens risk assessment and undermines pricing of green and transition assets. Some safeguards need to be complied with. Gradual standardization of metrics, capacity building and technical assistance, digital reporting platforms to reduce cost. The objective should be data improvement over time, not perfection on one day. And lastly, compliance cost and MSC exclusion risk. This is another challenge. It's challenge of cost of compliance. Detailed disclosure, audit, certifications can be burdensome, particularly for smaller enterprises. If not designed carefully, taxonomy frameworks may favor large corporates, restrict MSME access to green finance, slow down credit flow. So some safeguards again need to be taken. Proportionately proportionality in reporting requirements, simplified taxonomy pathways for MSME, aggregated or program-based financing structures, and support through development finance institutions. So transition risk and capital starvation, that is overly narrow focus on pure green activities, can unintentionally starve high emission sectors of capital, even when they are willing to transition. This creates disorderly transitions, job losses, and asset stranding. Again, some safeguards are required: parallel development of transition taxonomy, clear time-bound decarbonization pathways, performance-linked financing, and monitoring of transition outcomes. So transition finance should be disciplined thoroughly. And lastly, governance and regulatory coordination. Sustainable finance cut across regulators, capital markets, banking, insurance, and international finance. Fragmented oversight can lead to regulatory arbitrage, inconsistent standards, and supervisory gaps. So inter-regulatory coordination and mechanism are required. Clear role of definitions and periodic review and refinement of taxonomy. Lastly, green taxonomy should be treated as a living framework evolving with science, technology, and market maturity. In green taxonomies, green actually means activities that are scientifically aligned with environmental goals, meet measurable performance thresholds, avoid significant harm, and withstand regulatory scrutiny, not activities that merely claim sustainability. That's all about green taxonomies and sustainable finance. Thank you.
Thank you, madam. Any question from participation? Hello. Any question from participation is there? हेलो मैंग, तुम्हारा कोई क्वेश्चन है?
मेरा
क्या?
मेरा कोई क्वेश्चन
नहीं है मैडम, किसी ने तो कोई क्वेश्चन नहीं लिखा है, तो अपने सेशन को क्लोज करते हैं.
Okay, thank you EIRC, thank you everybody
2 सेकंड और लूंगा आपका मैं.
Sorry?
2 सेकंड और लूंगा आपका मैं.
Sure,
थैंक यू सुकन्या दी. टुडेज टॉपिक जो था आज अपना ग्रीन टेक्सोनोमीज एंड सस्टेनेबल फाइनेंस, तो आपने काफी कुछ समझाया, काफी कुछ बताया इसके बारे में. इस ग्रीन डिफाइन किया आपने, इसका क्या ट्रू मीन्स होता है, फिनांस में इसका क्या पोजीशन है, इसको कैसे सस्टेन करेंगे ग्लोबली, इसमें ट्रस्ट वर्दी क्या है, ट्रांसपेरेंसी कैसे लाना है, इसका आगे अपने किस तरह से सस्टेन करेंगे. तो ये सब जानकारी देने के लिए धन्यवाद, और आपने अपना बेस्ट टाइम से समय निकाला, इसके लिए भी आपको धन्यवाद. और थैंक यू मैम फॉर योर गिविंग टाइम from your busy schedules, and thank you participation for patient hearing.
Thank you everyone for patient hearing and giving me the opportunity to speak and to gain some knowledge on this topic. I also do some research work while deciding to speak on this topic, so I also little bit have some knowledge regarding this. Thank you for giving me the opportunity.
হ্যাঁ, এটা দুজনে both sided হয় ম্যাডাম, নিজেকে একটু তৈরি করতে হয়.
Exactly.
তো পড়াশোনাও করতে হয়,
আবার it's a learning process actually.
Exactly madam.
And it's a new topic na, that's why we have to develop doing some research work, and it's a both ways. So thank you for giving me the opportunity. Hope to meet again in the future.
Thank you madam.
Okay.
Thank you ma'am.